Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to What Are You Painting Now? Now begins our new weekly WAYPN for Q4 for 2017. As always, I'm just doing the sound check at the start, seeing that everything is working all right for Q. And yeah, so at this start, since we've got nobody else here for the moment, all I'm going to do is just a quick 4-minute rant on how nothing starts finished. And yeah, more or less, guys, just the thing is, that's pretty much it. Nothing starts finished, ladies and gentlemen. Not a damn thing. All right. We've got one of our first people coming in, Martin. G'day, Martin. How are you? And yeah, so a lot of people, they see some of these absolutely magnificent pieces just done to perfection in this thread. And what I really wanted to do was, at the start of this, make a point of saying, hey, no, that's not how it always is. My point was that with all of this, when you're starting your piece, when you're doing whatever it is that you are doing, don't get disheartened when you see somebody put something up and it is just glorious. It just shames everything that you've done. Remember that some of these people are professionals, and even with these professionals, they spend hours upon hours with each piece. So, that's worry about. Nothing starts finished. So, if you've got any questions, I do believe it's just Martin in here for now. So, I do believe this is Martin45. And if you want to ask something, go right ahead. In the meantime, I'm going to start setting up for the actual one. Now, yeah, so I was pretty happy with my little rant at the start of the WAYPN thing, but I am going to go over it again once the thing starts up for everybody who's going to be joining. So, yeah, this Martin is Laughing Boy. We've got more than one Martin in our forums. Sorry, man, I get confused as to which Martin is which. But yeah, actually, you've been doing up some pieces fairly recently, haven't you? I want to scroll down to them, but I've got everything set up, so I don't know. I'm sure we will get there eventually. But yeah, so I'm pretty happy with people getting on board, and one of the things is I'm gonna be reading out what Gorilla with a Brush said, because what he said was extremely impactful, because I feel that he's a very good painter. And hey, Doug, that's Doug the Fug, who's just joined us. And in the way that he said it was just absolutely phenomenal. All right, now the countdown begins, and we've got about 25 seconds. No, just 20 seconds until it begins. So, yeah, I'm just going to be starting off with a bit of a conversation at the start, because I want everybody to sort of get the idea with this piece that everybody is welcome. Doesn't matter how good or bad you are at paint. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to the weekly WAYPN. What are you painting now? The first one for Q4 for 2017. All right, let's get right into it. So the first thing that I want to talk about is how nothing starts finished, ladies and gentlemen. And that is what we've got at this very start. So we start off with my post. No big surprise there. So I just want to quickly break this one down. So what are you painting now, or WAYPN for short? all it is a place where people post whatever they've been painting now. It doesn't matter what it is, so long as it's nerd or hobby related. That is all that matters, ladies and gentlemen. So it doesn't matter if it's a MDF board, you know, up for Armies on Parade, a Mega Man costume, you know, it doesn't matter what it is. And the thing is, this is a place for everyone. So I hope that you feel welcome. And I just wanted to give a quick bit of a rant on how nothing starts finished. I've been working on my Armies on Parade board for some time now, and I think I've got to the stage where it's looking decent, just decent, not great, not, you know, anything special, just decent. And the thing is, that has taken an enormous amount of work, as hopefully you can see with the pictures in the background. And all of that turned into this. And I thought that it turned out pretty darn well. And basically, all you have to do to get these kinds of results is these two things: time and effort. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right to it. So we're starting off with Laughing Boy, and we've got some Wolfsung miniatures. I do believe that is how the Germans say it, Wolfsung, with a V rather than the U or W. And yeah, they're looking pretty nice. Hopefully we can get these up in another thing, and they will not. We can get a bit of zoom on them. Nice. All right. So I'm really liking the way that these bases are done up. And see, this is exactly what I talk about when I'm always on about with bases. See, your base is part of your story. And what these bases right here are telling you is that you're fighting in a ruined city. Not just any ruined city, but a ruined Victorian city. Thank you for that. I was just told it is correct with the V. So first off, like with the dog, I think he's pretty bright, but I like him. The only things that I would suggest with him is either give a little white dot in here and a gloss effect, or maybe get your red and get a dry brush and just brush out to give it a sort of dull glow effect. But yeah, he's pretty bright, but I can see that that's a deliberate choice based off everything else that you've got here. The tentacles, of course, are looking absolutely phenomenal. Now, what I really like here is the color contrast that is used with the base, with this guy, right? Now, see, a lot of the times what you're looking for with color contrast is you want to contrast things on the miniature. But as his suit is all a singular color, what he's done is he's gotten that color contrast with the base itself. Now, also take a look at these brass bits here, and remember what I'm always on about with metallics. Don't think of them as a metallic when thinking about color. They are what? They are a color, right? And so we've got a really nice color scheme with this bloke right here. Now, let's take a look at the guy behind him. Now, see, what I really like, once again, is this nice color contrast. His tie out there gives some good contrast, right? And we've got some very earthen works down there to contrast against his more formal appearance. And, of course, we have over here with the little green goblin, or hobbit-looking fellow. Okay, so these are just the works in progress, I have been informed. So I'm gonna quit talking about these for now, and I'm going to give a more in-depth analysis when we are seeing the finished product. Sorry for that. I just thought that they were all finished up. All right, so we have Mage giving an enormous amount of feedback throughout, which is really interesting. Oh, and there is something that I want to show you guys, which I've got to get to a little later on, when he says, is that thing about the warm weather real? Yes, it is real. I've got a picture somewhere. Give me a second, guys, and I will I'll see if I can get that one up, because it is It is pretty damn hilarious if I can find it in time. But yeah, so we've got a pretty nice looking miniature right here with the way that this is done up by Millamar. And what I particularly like is the contrast between the sort of earthen look of him and that of the very regal gold with him. Now, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of room for color contrast, but what he has got is he's used the red with the plumage and the blue with the gems to give that color contrast. One bit of advice that I would give is maybe you want to turn off the flash with your camera and just find somewhere with some better lighting. But yeah, I really like the base, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is all that is required for a good base. Just see how he's just put a little bit of sand on there, dry brushed it up, put some rocks and a bush there. Mwah! Beautiful, just beautiful. But yeah, we've got some of the side shots here, and I'd say that this guy is done up in a pretty quick and dirty way, but he's come together just so lovely, just so lovely. And I love seeing those old school gem effects. Also, that's a nice fade there on the power weapon that he's done up. But yeah, he's looking pretty darn good. All right, so next up we've got Soap Dodger, and Soap Dodger has been working on some, I'd like to call them tunnels, but I guess they're closer to walkways when they're in a sci-fi setting, aren't they? But yeah, he's been working on some walkways or, you know, internal spaceship components, I guess. It doesn't really matter how you refer to them, but the point is that's what he's been working on. Now, I really like the rust effect that he's been doing. Now, I think that it's come off better in some places than it has in others. So right up here, up the top of this piece right here, I think, and right there, it's worked against him a bit. How would I fix that piece? I don't know. I think maybe try for like claw marks or something like that. And I like those slight splatters of blood about, you know, giving the idea that these walls have seen things. But yeah, it's really nice. And what is really nice is seeing this right off the bat, seeing something different, seeing something which more people might find interesting, as it's a lot more neutral. It's something that everyone can get into. And it shows that this is what WAYPN is, which is something that I very much like. All right, so next up we've got Doug the Fug, and this is a work in progress, question mark. Wanted to take a pick of two, showing up there, probably heading back for one plunder soon. I'm sure that Doug will say one way or the other, but I'm going to sit on him for just a moment while I see if I can find this this weather picture that I've got somewhere, guys, where it does show the Australian weather and its craziness. Because I tell you what, in here in Australia, it is pretty intense when it comes to heat. And yeah, here I've found this picture, and I'm just going to bring it up for just a second, and you guys will get an idea of what I mean when it comes to this stuff. But yeah, I find it mildly amusing when outsiders sort of don't quite get it. So here we go. And yes, this is what I was talking about. The second one is high. Yeah. So yeah. All right. So this is the guy that Doug the Fug painted up at his local painting competition, which he had only 2 hours to paint with. So I think that he looks pretty decent, especially with the boots. I think that the red color is just a little off, but I do believe I mentioned that before, and I think that his base is really, really working against him with whatever this flock is. But Other than that, I think that he's looking pretty darn good. I do believe that we commented on him before, but yeah, taking a look at these better pictures, I do think that he looks a lot better than he did in the shop, especially on the boots. I really like the way that his gold is very, very neat, because I tell you what, in that sort of time frame, I know that I would be on a bit of a panic. I think that I'm not sure if this is Balthazar or not, but I think that that's come out pretty darn decent. But yeah, the chainmails come up nicely. I think maybe just a wash over that would have really brought him up, but with 2 hours, you only have so much time. But yeah, I tell you what, the little tattoo that you've done on there is very, very nice. But yeah, uh, and I think that no, Doug, I think that he has come together pretty well. Like, once you've always got to remember the constraints in which you're working, because if you're taking a look at this and you're going, oh man, I could have done this better, I could have done that better. You got 2 hours. Take a look at what you did and take a look at your success and just go, yeah, I did the best that I could. And if you've won with that, you've done better than everyone else. So don't try and compare yourself up to any of these other ones that are done up. All right, so next up we've got Mage, and so he wants a bit of feedback on old Clayface here. He's not too sure what to do next, and he's none too happy with the brown. So what I would suggest with the Clayface here is doing something by giving different shadings of brown. So rather than having one singular uniform brown, I'd try and do some different shades of brown, especially where he's stretching and where he's more dense and solid. Try and give some different browns there. But other than that, I'm none too sure what you can do with him. If anybody in the comments has any advice, I will certainly pass it on. But yeah, I think that he's looking decent thus far. But of course, Clayface is what Clayface is. Don't get too hung up on him. But yeah, I think you did pretty darn good, man. At least for a work in progress. All right, next up we've got Laughing Boy, and these are the ones that are all finished up. Laughing Boy? Question mark? I do believe so. Da-da-da. Finish off the old lady. All right, so we will copy these and go over. Might open a new one for that. All right, so yeah, the tentacles were already looking good. I'm not too sure if anything was added to them or taken away, but yeah, I think that they look pretty darn good. What I particularly like is this young lady and the old lady having that pink matching them, and how she's sort of got this very sort of regal pose to her with the way that she is with all of the tentacles about. Of course, that's not a painting thing, but it is a very, very nice looking model. The other thing is it's very subtle, but you'll take note of it once you take a deeper look. Take a look at the more youthful looking skin, the older skin over here. It is a small difference, but it is an important one. See, I'm none too sure as to these characters' importance as in the story, but I would say, based off what we're seeing, that they use these tentacles for attacks, and that maybe she gets older, or, through magic she can become younger. I'm none too sure, but I would say that this is pretty much the same character. I cannot see details with the face, but I think that it's come together pretty well, and I really do like the color contrast of the pink against the green. I think that looks great, and I think that the bases are looking very, very nice. But yeah, so we've got another shot here. Yeah, take a look at that beautiful, beautiful basing right there. I think that just looks absolutely, absolutely phenomenal, ladies and gentlemen. But I guess it is time to move on. One thing, I always try and give critique on these things, as it's our first time with Q4, and I will try and give some critique with this. So I'm trying to, so pretty much a grandmother and the granddaughter as they can summon and control the tentacles. So that's the backstory with these ones. So I'm just trying to think as to what could be improved. It's pretty difficult. I think that they're done up really well, and I think that the pink comes together really well. There's some great shading there. I guess the only thing is maybe going into some more layers with the pink, but at that point, it's just more effort. But taking another look at this, one of the things that I realized that I didn't comment on before is the white right here. The white is just absolutely beautiful, ladies and gentlemen. And white is such a terrible, terrible color to work with. All right. So let us move on. And here's the thing that I wanted to read out. Now, I've been reading out Lawn Or's comments as he's been going through, the whole work in progress through everything. But the reason I wanted to talk about what Gorilla with a Brush has said is because I think it really cut a chord. All right, nothing starts finish. Love it. Good day, all. Got listening through Calidor's third quarter WAYPN stream a bit ago and had some comments that I would love to share for the support of making progress and understanding that painting is a process, as well as some tips on blonde hair. I will make 3 points in a row breaking things up, as the first comments on will be on WAYPN, the second will be on the blonde hair, and the third will be a work in progress on the Etten. So I'm not going to comment on the Etten stuff. All right, first off, thank you, Calidors, for all that you do for this community. No problems. Second, Calidors mentioned the negative effects when you compare up. Now, comparing up means when you compare to somebody who has a different skill level to yourself, somebody who is more advanced or has more years. And when you look at what you have painted and what a better painter has painted, and you compare yourself to the better painter and think, I could never do that. Well, let me share 2 secrets with you. First of all, we all feel that from time to time. Calidor's included me in the list of painters you shouldn't compare yourselves to because of his skill level. But I find myself every day looking at the works of Ben Comets, Stefan Ralph, and Camelson, and have to fight the same sort of emotions to tell me I can't possibly do that. If you look hard enough, no matter how good you are at something, you can always find someone who is better, especially with the internet allowing us to access the unfiltered 0.01 of painters and on a daily basis. And that is 100% true, guys. That is so true. All right. Even in certain aspects of our whole hobby, as an analogy, even if Usain Bolt could beat every person in the world in a 100-meter race, he would get crushed at the 1600-meter race by many, many athletes. Next, we all start a project with a bare miniature. We also start our painting journey at the bottom. So this is the first efforts by Gorilla with a Brush, and you can see that they're fairly basic. They're pretty decent in my opinion, but fairly basic, you know. And then after that, those are the first models I ever painted. Anyone who thinks that my painting comes from pure talent should have a good hard look at those models. I didn't even know what primer was. I had no brush control, no knowledge of paint consistency or color theory, etc. So how did I get from there to here? And it's an absolutely beautiful piece. It's no great secret, just time, practice, and fearlessness. I'm no different from anyone else. I've spent a lot of time experimenting and learning. If you want to find yourself in a rut or want to challenge yourself, try one of the following things. Now, he goes into all three of these things, and I'm not going to go into every single thing about his post, but I want you guys to read this stuff because it is so important to the foundation of knowing that no, you're not on the bottom. No, you don't suck, guys. There is so many phenomenal painters on here, and if you get scared seeing some of this stuff, don't worry. Just post your stuff. People won't care. They won't care that you're not the greatest painter. They'll want you to improve. You know why they want you to improve? Because they want more painters around, not because you're bad, not because they want to put you down. Nobody wants to put you down here. People want to build you up. All right, and he just finishes off. Finally, I wanted to thank you for being a part of this community and keeping it positive and a helpful place to hang out and share your work. While it's funny that Calidor scrolls past my picture and said, let's not focus on that for too long. We all don't want to feel bad. I don't post here to stroke my ego or show off. And I don't think any of us ever thought that, but I was just being humorous, of course. I get genuinely excited when I have new progress to add to a blog and push things to get some things done in time for the weekly WAYPN, which gets me pumped for the Saturday painting sessions. And I love when I get constructive feedback, like tips on taking better pictures of my orcs a few weeks ago. But that only happens with the awesome interactivity and support of the community like all of you. So here goes for a great fourth quarter of WAYPN. Thank you so much for that, Gorilla with the brush. That was amazing. And here is, of course, the absolutely beautiful model with the blonde hair, and he goes through everything on how to paint that. And he even gives me a bit of feedback on that, which I'm going to be trying out soon. All right, and here is his work in progress, and I tell you what, it's really coming up, but I did want to actually give him one bit of advice on this. So the one bit of advice that I wanted to give on this particular thing is this right here with the stubble. Now, I actually know a decent stubble effect. There's two ways of doing it, but see, I noticed here along the jawline where you can see the skin coming through. So one of the things that is recommended is that what you do is you get your skin color and mix it 50-50 with the gray that you're going to use, right? And then apply that as a thin coat, right? And you'll have a much more naturalistic looking stubble look. So there's that. The other thing is, if your company that you use has a airbrush equivalent of whatever you're going to use, try using that instead, because it's still got a very, very high pigment count, but it won't go on as thick. All right, so as it's just a work in progress, of course, I don't give comments until the finished product, but I tell you what, it's looking pretty damn nice. That skin work is absolutely beautiful, and I just want to give a final big thank you to him for the massive effort he put in giving all that feedback. All right, so next up we've got Mage with some Test of Honor Ronin, and I do believe we get to see these guys all done up with faces soon. I'm not sure if they're down here or not. Yeah, okay. So, like, all right. One sec. So, Doug the Fug says, I like using a tough, a touch of gunmetal to my flesh colors for stubble. Works out okay. Yeah, I could see that working, you know, because it's got that slight metallic effect, but I guess it would really depend on the company's metallics. Like GW has an extreme metallic color, and I'm not sure how too much that would work out with things. So I'm not sure who produces gunmetal. I'm sure that Doug will tell us in the comments. So first off, I want to comment on these little bases here. They look just absolutely beautiful. I just love it, and how we've got the melting snow around the place. It just looks so lovely. You know, I just love those sorts of bases where things really come to life. All right. Good evening, Razor. So we've just had Razor join us, and we're commenting on Major's pieces right here. Now, the one thing that I would say about these is I understand how they're being used and that sort of thing, but I would still love to see these guys still based up. So first off, I'm not too. And we've also got Fishman now. I think that maybe a wash over the fur here could really bring things up. But the thing that I really love about these is the pink. Oh my God. Just pink and blue and high color contrast and these red weapons. Oh my God. It is gorgeous. It is just gorgeous the way that this is done up. But of course, there are some other things. I might add a bit of a gloss wash over the hair, because Japanese have a very sort of glossy hairstyle, and that could reflect that a lot. And if you give it just a very, very, very light touch of grey beforehand, with a dry brush, I think it'll look really great. So Doug the Fug, who was mentioning about stubble before, was saying that it's a Vagello, or a darkened down army painter gunmetal grey. See, lots of companies have very different metallic effects. Like this metallic effect right here isn't nearly as brilliantly intense as the GW one. I know that a lot of people very much dislike the GW metallics because they can be so bright. And myself personally, I'm not a fan of how bright they are. They come out when they come out, but certain things I think do look good with that. But yeah, speaking of which, I think maybe just adding a wash around here or painting that black would help you out a lot. But other than that, I think that these guys have come up just absolutely phenomenal. And he's also doing a work in progress, even, of Damian Wayne and Catwoman. And I tell you what, I'm particularly impressed by these models. I think that they look very, very nice, even though they are metal, which is the devil. Metal is the devil, ladies and gentlemen. It is just such a horror to work with. All right, and we've got someone a bit new. So we've got Jox. I do believe that is the way that this should be pronounced. I've got no idea one way or the other. And he's trying out his light box. Now, yeah, I think that the light box pictures have come up well, man. The only one bit of advice that I would have, as he's asking for advice on this, is I would group those miniatures slightly closer together and take a photo so that you don't see the white sides, so that you're only seeing grey. I think these guys have come up fairly nicely, but hopefully we will see a picture of them a little more closely. No, some different guys instead. Okay, so we've got a whole host of things on this one. All right, so first off, thank you very much for showing us your works in progress. Next up, these guys right here. Now, I'm none too sure as to the what these guys actually are. Hopefully he will tell us. Brotherhood? Brotherhood does not tell me a lot. So first off, let's take a look at these guys right here. And that is as close as we get, ladies and gentlemen. That's a little unfortunate. But All right, so I really love the blue on the white. I think that that's a great color scheme, and I think that they're looking really nice. I think that this basing is looking absolutely phenomenal, as we can see like a steel grate here, and we can see some ruins right there with the grass growing over it. I'm none too sure on the flock itself. I think the flock itself might be working against you. Which it's got a very sort of granular texture rather than a more sort of grassy feel to it. And I think that you might want to start with like a very, very light gray and then go into the white, because these are very much brilliantly white. But as for the other guys, I think that they're a beautiful, beautiful contrast to the other guys. I think the reds come together really well, and I think that you've done just beautifully with the black here. You know, the way that you've highlighted it up with the grays. I think that that looks great. But feel more than free to take some close-up images, or maybe with a different camera. I think if you've got, yeah, just take a look into your, I think that these might be taken on a phone based off those little images right there. See if you can take some higher quality pictures, and I would be more than happy to give some more intense feedback. But the one thing that I will say on these guys that definitely needs to be improved is you need to give some more effort to these guys' bases, especially when you've got that on the other side, and those guys' bases are just absolutely beautiful. But yeah, so I'm going to move on to Pierre's, who is doing up some dismounted Panzer crew. And I think that they've come together just beautifully. And what I really like is the way that he puts in a real effort into giving some difference between these guys. Now, the helmets right here really help show the difference of each of these models without any of them being in a different pose. The other thing that is really good is the way that the different weapons also gives them that extra level of personality. So you've got this guy here with, I do believe that's I'm unsure if that's a grenade or a rocket propelled grenade. And then you've got the guys with, of course, the wooden stock weapons, and then the guy with the whole machine gun weapon. And all of that looks very nice, the way that they come together, because they've got, you know, they are a squad, and this is how they will appear. But the other thing is the basing, as I've always gone on about with Pierre's, just looks absolutely beautiful, ladies and gentlemen. There's not a lot to it, but it's just beautiful, ladies and gentlemen. Now, as we're about to come up on one of my pieces, guys, feel free to comment any questions, any queries, and I will give you some feedback. So, of course, I just came along and reminded everybody about what we're watching right now, and gave some feedback to Gorilla with a Brush. All right, and hopefully we will see him in the in all of this. If you guys see him over on Beast of War, feel more than free to give him a hard time and tell him to come over here. You know, because he said that he'd be up. He said that he'd be up, and it's 6:30. You know, on a Sunday, man. Sleeping in. What are you doing? All right, so next up we've got Dark Vernon, and he's just showing off some crystal pieces that he's been putting together. Now, I'm none too sure what these actual crystals are from, but they look absolutely beautiful, man. If you could share what they're from, we would all love it, because I think that they're looking beautiful. I don't know what you guys think, but I tell you what, that is a hell of a piece just starting out. All right, so hopefully we will see some more soon enough. All right, so next up we've got Norglad. Norgulad? I am unsure how to say that. All right, and he's been working through the entire core set, and I do believe, unless I am incorrect, he has gotten a golden button for this. Tell me if I'm incorrect, guys. Please do tell me. I'm just going to take a quick gander over at the golden buttons and see if I am correct. And hopefully I will find out one way or the other. But I tell you what, they are looking pretty damn good. Now, of course, with the basing, I want a little bit more. Now, I do like the crackled texture. I think that it is one of the best textures they have ever made. And I think that it is an absolutely beautiful piece. But just the odd bit of grass here and there would really, really add to it. But yes, you are not incorrect. All right. So, Razor tells me that yes, he did win a golden button for this. And you can see why. Because all of these characters do have a lot of character to them. So you take a look at all of these guys. Now, I do think that some of them could use a bit of a wash, like this one here and this one here. But for the most part, they're just done up so beautifully. And they've got such a level of character to each of them, as if, you know, these were people. And that's one of the things that I really love about the Walking Dead models, because you take a look at some of those ones back there and you can see that he's put in a little less effort into these guys than he has into these, which of course makes perfect sense. Now see, that right there is all that I think. Right. Oh, and so this was one thing that was asked on the Weekender show. So when it comes to these crackle things, if you want to be working with it, one thing that you can do is, if you're working with the base first, which is not possible with these guys because, as you know, they're printed into the base, what you can do is put the crackle on, prime it, and then paint it. So that's one thing you can do if you want to use the crackle paint. So yeah, I think he's done absolutely beautifully with the dark skin right here. And I tell you what, the way that this bald guy's chrome dome has that reflection, just beautiful. Just beautiful the way that it's done up. Also, I really like the way that the denim's done up. I think that that looks just fine, just damn fine. And I tell you what, take a look at the layering on that shirt right there. Absolutely freaking beautiful. Just gorgeous, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Now, it's obvious that certain characters got a little more effort than others with this, and I'm more than fine with that. So Doug the Fug just wanted to add, such a great game. I went to the boot camp, fun to paint, and a great game. I will put down a paintbrush to play. High praise indeed. So yeah, I think that this has all come together. Oh, did they add Clementine to this? That's great. I really love Clem. She is such a great character. For those of you who don't know, there's the video games, which I feel are more true to the comic books, though they're not following a comic book storyline. They have a greater feeling of truth than, I would say, this show, which is ventured into torture porn, in my opinion. But yeah, so the only things that I would say is maybe some washes on some of them, especially with the zombies, because they're so grimy. So it doesn't matter if you wash up too much. And the other thing is, I would just say with these bases, maybe you could do a brown wash over that. You don't have to worry about anything else. It'll really bring things, you know, up and down respectively. A brown wash and maybe a dry brush. But I think these guys have come together just beautifully. All right, next up we've got Lawn Orr, and he's been working on something for Guild Ball. And see, I think that this comes together just beautifully. You'll see what all of that turns into, and you guys will absolutely love it. But of course, feel free to post your works in progress, guys. Even if it is stuff like this, you know, where there's no paint, where you're just, you know, doing something, because that's what it's about. It's about showing that, you know, painting is a process. And some of the times that process starts, of course, with the actual getting together of stuff. So these guys are just finished up from what I read just there. So let's take a bit of a better look. All right. So they are a bit fuzzy when we zoom in. So one of the things that I will say is I think that I'm going to double check these are finished up. Da-da-da. Oh, it's the beginning of October, fairly ambitious, blah, blah, blah. So I think that they're just works in progress, if that is the case. I really love you guys to just post up the top if it's work in progress or finished, because a lot of the times I get confused. I am a simple man. Oh, yes, a simple man. But yeah, so I think that it's looking pretty decent thus far. But of course, we will see some more paint on it soon enough. All right, next up we've got Dogma, and okay, I do believe we see this guy finished up later. Yeah, we do. Now, why I always want to see works in progress, ladies and gentlemen, is because just take a quick look at this guy and just sort of cement him in your memory. And just remember that this is how things start out. Nothing starts finished. And it's really, really important. So yeah, brushstrokes also thanked Gorilla with a brush with that. So apparently with his Marine, the one where I did give him a bit of a hard time, his Marine was apparently painted in that way, but apparently the photo was overexposed. And I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I've been watching the progress on this one, and oh God, it's gorgeous. It is just absolutely freaking gorgeous. And we see some more of that painted up soon enough. All right, here it is, Laughing Boy's Doggo, and I tell you what, he's fixed up everything that I was going to say about it. So it's dulled down a lot, and I do believe we've got that white dot in there. Now, I really do love the color coding with the chords right there. I think that that's come up just great. And of course, we saw it spacing earlier, which has also been dulled down a bit from what I can see. But yeah, I think it's come together all really, really nicely. If anything, I think the only thing that I might suggest is maybe a gloss wash on certain parts to sort of give the idea that they're oiled and mechanical and moving. But I mean, that's pretty weak criticism when it comes to it. But yeah, I absolutely loved that update that you did to this guy to give that interior bit of cloak. But yeah, it's a bit unfortunate that I don't have more advice. I guess the only thing is maybe add some soot marks here, but it is looking really, really good, man. And as you heard from my comments before, like, you pretty much answered everything that I thought that could be improved already. So it's looking damn fine, man. But yeah, there's not too much that I could add in terms of improving this guy. All right, so next up we've got Pierre's with a bunch of works in progress. And as you can see, just why it's important is some of the times you get an idea of how people paint things up. So he does all of the clothes first before moving on to anything else, whereas some other people start off with the skin. All right, so so we have Laughing Boy just say, Thanks, dude. I sort of like the Sid idea. Yeah, but other than that, like I said, there's not a whole lot of strong, good criticism that I could do. And we have one almost finished up piece here, but I tell you what, Pierre's is just the absolute master of weathering, and he's given some advice on it before. And if you guys ever want advice on weathering, I suggest just sending him a message, or, honestly, he should do up an article for Beast of War, and we should just have that stickied somewhere, because I tell you what, the way he does up steel weathering is just absolutely beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. But yeah, so that is just a work in progress, and as you can see, there is very much different stages of works in progress, isn't there, ladies and gentlemen? All right, so up next we have Jocks once again, and oh, come on, guys, show him a bit of love. All right, so I remember why he wasn't getting any love for this one. So I took a look at it for all of half a second. So Jocks, if you're listening to this, the first time round, your pictures didn't show up. All right, so I think that your skellies are coming up really nicely. I see that you use the white bone technique. I prefer the more sort of cream bone technique, but I think that you've done really, really well with the highlights and such, which you can see here and around here. I think that that looks really nice. I do think that if you're going to put that level of effort into the skeleton itself, put that same level of effort into his clothing, because that is the most of what we see. Like maybe just a dry brush or two, that sort of thing. So how many of these things are there? Cool. So yeah, I think that it's come together a bit better with the blue. And I think that the skeleton looks pretty damn decent. But maybe dull down the sword a little, and hopefully we will see a whole lot of these guys with some bases done up soon enough. All right, so next up we've got the man who helped us start this thing off, Wild Chevy, and this is his submission for OSL. So that's the Iron Painter. Does anybody in the thread know what OSL is? Because I would like to know. All right, so first off, I actually think that he needs to add something more to the base here, right? But I mean, who is surprised by that comment? All right, so the sword looks absolutely beautiful, as does the armor. Take a look at the way that he's done the chipping on this armor. God, it is just gorgeous, just absolutely gorgeous the way that he's done it up, right? I think that this is all with painting techniques rather than actual chipping. Opulent, opent light sourcing, Soap Dodger says. I'm not sure how to pronounce that first word. Opulent? I think I see what he's saying. Yeah. So if you take a look at it this way, you see that this area is lit up, whereas some of the rest of it's a bit darker. All right, so yeah, the chipping is absolutely beautiful. Great glow effect with the eye. We'll see object source lighting. Okay, yeah, no, object source lighting. That makes more sense. I was like, opulent. But yeah, objects, of course. So I think that the symbols on him is just come up gorgeously. I love that little glow effect there, and of course, the lens is just absolutely gorgeous, and that slight glow with the thrusters there, mwah, just freaking beautiful. I think that the whole thing's come together really well. And take note, guys, see that he's actually used blue for his purity seals. So it's just little things like that. Yeah, it is absolutely beautiful. So, so Dodger says, damn fine model. Never mind what it's called. All right, let us move on to the next bit, and we've got brushstroke, and he's giving us some more shots of this, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Now, one of the things that I did want to mention as a possible idea for brushstrokes, as hopefully it would give him the time for it to dry. So I think this looks all really beautiful, but I was going to suggest a actual water effect over the top of it, and not start it where that wet effect is, but about halfway across it, to give the idea of the water slowly coming up, sort of thing. And I think that that could really improve it, but I don't know. You might have to try it out on something to get an idea, but I think that would look just really good. I mean, you've really done well with this surf. I always question the idea of painted surf, but I think that you've done really well. All right, and Razor just says exactly in response to Soap Dodger's damn fine model. And gives us a big old smile there. All right, so next up is myself, and I've been working on these. So that little hole in the middle is not meant to be there. It's just a part of the drilling process of getting these. I tried it without the actual drill bit in the middle, and the results were not good. And these were just drilled out of some of the spare pieces I had. And these are for the bases on my Gene Steel occultists. If you guys have any thoughts on that in the comments, I'm more than happy for you to share them. But in the meantime, I'm going to move on and go to our next piece. All right, so next up, we've got Laughing Boy, and he's just finished up this guy right here. Now, I really love a lot about this guy. So first off, still, once again, that color coding, ladies and gentlemen. So his suit's all blue against this red brickwork. Find where you can use that color theory. And the way that he's done it is with the basing, and that's just great. So we've got like this primary color scheme, right? Blue, yellow, red. Just beautiful. Just beautiful. Now, I think that the goggles have come up well. I like the timepiece over here. I think the whole thing's come together really well. The only piece of advice that I would have is regarding the eyes themselves. Now, eyes are always hard, ladies and gentlemen. Never think that I'm giving people a hard time about eyes, because eyes are just such a nightmare. So first off, I would suggest, starting off with black, using the off-white, that sort of thing. But it does seem as if that he's used the off-white. But the thing is, what I would do is just get your skin color and paint him some eyelids over those things, because he's looking a bit bug-eyed at the moment. But other than that, this is an absolutely gorgeous model, the way that it's done up. So Laughing Boy says, normally I skip them, but it's my first try. There's a really good eye tutorial, which I will see. I do believe I've got in my. I'm just gonna give a quick scoot, guys, over to an eye tutorial, because I think that a lot of people could benefit from it. So this is from Arcane Paintworks, and she does absolutely gorgeous work. So this is the whole process right here. Paint the entire thing black, then paint an off-color white, use the dot in the middle, color it in whatever color, then put the pupil, then put the dot. And she shows off some of her results there, which are, of course, freaking gorgeous. But the whole thing is, I think that you see it a lot here with the black around the side right there, and you get an idea of how it gives a little bit more depth. But if you guys want to step up your eye work, take a look at Arcane Paintworks and go over and take a look at this right here. It's just absolutely beautiful. All right, so yeah, if that's your first attempt with eyes, man, that is really, really good. Because you haven't got him cross-eyed, you haven't got him doing the, oh, it's not Morgan Freeman. Oh, he was in Star Wars recently. The guy who has a lazy eye, but yeah, you don't have the lazy eye thing going on. So with that, man. All right, so next up, we've got Only One Pin Man, and Only One Pin Man is continuing to work on these lawmen. And I tell you what, this is just gorgeous. I really, really love his vest and his pants. They're just done up just beautifully. And of course, the leather jacket, I think that's just gorgeous, just absolutely beautiful. And a really, really nice base. He's been doing some absolutely beautiful bases with this. And I think that it's come together really well. We've got some great color contrast with the red against the light blue and the dark blue. And of course the buttons contrasting that. As for things to improve, unfortunately, due to the quality of the miniature, I don't think that there's a lot that he could do other than just some extra layering around the pants. I think that that's pretty much it as far as he can do for that sort of thing. Or maybe give him a blonde beard rather than a brown beard. But yeah, that's more just plain old throwing more effort at the model, because I really do like what he's doing with all of them, but they're not the highest quality models. I do think that they're nice models. They're just not the top of the range. So he can't do as much as you might be able to do with, say, a Kingdom's Death model, which is what I would sort of put at the height of it. And I tell you what, I am still absolutely loving these photos that he's doing. Now, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to remind you, if you want to give any sort of comments, you know, I will give them on air, so to speak, and I will give everybody a chance to say their piece if you want. But yeah, so once again, see, here is very much what I was talking about when it comes to eyes. So you can see that right there, the difference between those eyes. So Laughing Boy, feel really proud of yourself, that being your first effort. Eyes are just a nightmare to do, ladies and gentlemen. And the problem is we see faces all the time. So, of course, we have a reference point, which is just very brutal with our perceptions. So we're about to hit the hour mark, and I'm going to do my classic scoot off to grab a drink in a minute or so, and I will just leave you guys with some comments, just slightly louder. So first off, and we've got Gorilla with a brush. All right, so Soap Dodger says, paint job does bring out the Wild West and captures the characters of the model. And Doug the Fug says, the Sapphire photo filters are a fun touch. Yeah, they're an absolutely phenomenal touch. So one of the things that I really, really like about this guy is that we've got that blue against the yellow, which of course is absolutely, just absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, you've got it contrasted against the pink of those flowers there. So I just wanted to say one thing to Gorilla with a Brush. You missed out on the start of it where I was giving you a bit of a tongue bath. So, yeah. And Gorilla with a Brush says, dang, Arizona doesn't observe daylight savings time. Messed me up. An hour too late when I calculated the time difference. That's all right, man. That's all right. You know, you can go back and watch it. And, of course, if you've got any comments for that, you can watch that and come back, you know, because I did give a fair bit of commentary to what you said there at the start, because I thought that that was really important. And of course, YouTube has the ×2 function, because I can sometimes talk real dang slow. As for improvement, I don't think that there's a whole lot he can do because of the model itself. I really do like the way that the codes come up. I think the base is absolutely beautiful. But it does look like he might have been in a slight hurry to picture this one, because I think that's glue down there. I don't think that's snow. What do you reckon, ladies and gentlemen? But yeah, just, I tell you what, the sepia photos are a lot of fun. And, you know, I reckon just with a little box around that, I think that that would make a great wanted poster. All right, next up, we've got Pierre's doing up the German officers, and they are looking damn fine. So I think that the layering is nice, of course, as always, but he's put in an exceptional amount of work into the skin tones on these guys, I think. A lot more than he does with his standard troopers. And I think that this uniform is brought up a lot in this one. But yeah, of course, you know, I think that the Germans had a very stylish uniform. And I think that he's really helped bring that out. But other than that, there's not too much that I can comment on these guys, because, of course, he's showing good technique. I do think that the layering on this guy is a bit too broad with the bottom side than it is with the top. But, of course, I can't comment on color theory, that sort of thing, because they are historical models and they are historically accurate. And that's one thing that you can be guaranteed with Pierre's. They're always going to be historically accurate. All right, and still not even finished yet, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah. Oh, and next up we've got Karaberg Swordsman of Oldtime. But yeah, he's been doing a lot of these old hammer miniatures, and I really, really love them. And thank you so much, Pierre's, for shooting it the way that you have, because I think that it's absolutely beautiful, this background here, you know, to have that against this guy. All right, so I think that an exceptional amount of time has been put into the skin work here. I think that there's really good work with the eyes. I can't see the other eye due to the angle as much, but that, you know, such is life. But this is what we were talking about with that Arcane Paintworks thing. So you'll see right here that you've got that black around there, and you'll see that that follows that step right there. While there may not be the color with it, you'll see that it really does help add a dimension of depth, and it seems like the eyes are slightly closed. That was the problem that Mass Effect Andromeda had with their animations that upset a lot of people. I think the wash has turned a bit against you right here, but other than that, I think that he looks beautiful. You know, that gray against the red, I think just beautiful. The swords have come together nicely. You know, they're just swords. Not too sure what you could do with them. And I really do like the way that you've done it with black hair. Doug the Fug adds, nice setting for the picture. All right, and next up we have, of course, the lovely Aura in a Bag, who has been really going to town with those comments. Look at all those comments, ladies and gentlemen. And I love seeing the comments, ladies and gentlemen, because that is what keeps people coming back. All right, so I'm just going to read out what she said to me and give a bit of feedback to her feedback. At Calidors, a little late, but thanks for the last Q3 stream. It was great. And absolutely awesome terrain you've got going there. But I guess you already know I really like it. And what a great idea, drilling your own bases. I wouldn't have noticed the hole if you hadn't have said anything. And once the minis are on, I guess you can cover slash hide them again. Again, what a great idea. Well, I think it was more just forced to do it with that Aura in the Bag because they had no bases of that size, and I had the leftover thing, so I felt that I sort of had to do it. All right. Next up we've got at Mage, and he says, I'll try and give more when I have a chance later. Today will be a day of work and training and me time. YouTube comments will do. Need to figure out a Gmail to get on it. Did you guys need to have a Gmail to have a YouTube account? I know that they changed things a while ago, and mine has pretty much been grandfathered in, but I don't think that they've had that for a while. I don't believe so anyway. But yeah, I think you can just sign up for a... I guess I should look into that. All right, next up we've got said 1106, and he's been still working on these mimics. And there's a whole bunch of them that he's been doing. Now, of these ones, I would say this is most probably the worst mimic of the lot of them in terms of it being ridiculously obvious. I think most of the time it's a bit harder to tell with some of them. Like, they are obvious, but not quite this obvious. But the one thing that I do want to draw attention to is just look at the absolutely beautiful grain work that he's done there, ladies and gentlemen. That grain work in that clock is absolutely freaking gorgeous. It is just astonishingly good. I really like it. Only tip I would say is give this a bit of a brass or a gold bit there on that knob. But other than that, I think it looks really, really good. I think that it's quite a feature that you should try and put in somewhere. All right, so Maid says that the bases are looking great. Love the clean creams and the dank metals. Very neat and provides good contrast. Don't worry about the thread and comments. All right, and so yeah, he just gives a quick plug to the Hobby Weekender. For you guys who don't know about the Hobby Weekender, I just want to give it a bit of a quick plug too. So it's a sort of place where you guys can get together and talk about hobby stuff and stuff that isn't necessarily all hobby related. So, you know, you're talking about, oh, I couldn't get any hobby time in this week because X, Y, and Z. And they have this whole thing where they pose some theoretical questions. Like one of the ones not too long ago was, would it be better to be a fish or a bird? You know, just stuff, you know, just an ability to converse with your fellow hobbyists and have somewhere to blow off steam. So I'm just going to read out what he said very quickly. Also, anyone interested in another Hobby Weekender thread? It's changed a lot, the atmosphere and culture-wise, since Uncle Jimmy departed from the forums. A little quieter now, but more the merrier. a very friendly and inclusive place full of encouragement. If you haven't tried before, just as yourself, why not? All right, so next up, Void Fire Moved is doing up a base for the Imperial Knight. So he says he's finished the base. So I'm going to give a bit of feedback on the base. So first off, I think the tiles are looking good, but they don't feel integrated into the base. They feel sort of stacked on. What I might do with these, right? See, I think that you've done well with some of it, but not as well with some of the other bits. What I'd do is I'd get some of that same, whatever it is that you're using, and put it a bit over some of these bits. I think that that looks really good right here, but I think coming a bit over some of these ones, I think would really help integrate it. All right, so Gorilla with a Brush says, with a base for such a giant model, it would be neat if the flagstones convey the weight of the knight standing on it. Have the one that he's standing on push up the corners and or cracking the flagstones. Yeah, I think that that's a really good idea. So I do believe that these are where they're going to place each of the things. So I think, yeah, that's a very good idea, Gorilla with a Brush. Thank you very much for adding that, and I think that that will really help him out. All right, so next up we've got Davith. I'm still very proud of being able to actually say that name. I know it's very much a small victory, ladies and gentlemen, but I'll take it. All right, so more work on the Grey Knights, adding mostly the base colors and getting a feeling for them. So I think that they're looking pretty good thus far. I know that they're base colors, but I tell you what, you've got that color contrast going, that sort of thing. They're looking good, and yeah, I can see how that banner's kicking your ass, man. That banner is a lot of freaking work. But hopefully, maybe even next week, we might see them all done up. All right, so we've got Gorilla with a Brush with some feedback. Thank you very much for giving feedback. All right, I was a little confused about what you were asking relative to the holes with the base. Are those areas where you mean to insert pegs? So, no, they're not places, because I drilled into pieces of terrain to make those bases. So yeah, no, it's just a terrible looking hole. All right, and Laughing Boy has to be off. The Sunday roast is on the table, so he's going to catch up later. Laughing Boy out. All right, you have a good one, Laughing Boy. So yeah, those holes in those bases are it's just me being bad. All right, so next up we've got Mage doing some more bases for his Test of Honor, I do believe these minis are for. And I tell you what, I really loved what he ended up doing with those. But yeah, Catwoman's coming into her own. I think that you've done lovely work with the skin. I think that the purple boots are coming up. And yes, okay, we're getting some base work with those guys. And I tell you what, more based up, it's really added a level of depth to them, and I think that they look absolutely phenomenal. I just love the whole thing all brought together. I don't think that there's been any additional colors added to the models themselves. So yeah, just once again, just a bit of a wash on the fur coat with this bloke, I think would help out a lot, and maybe a gloss wash with the hair. But other than that, absolutely phenomenal. And these dark elves are coming along. Gorilla with Brush says it's a little blurry, but Catwoman's goggles are looking good. Yeah, I'm none too fussed with the work in progress shots being a little blurry, but yeah, I do agree. Those goggles really do look like they're coming along. All right, next up we've got Govo. I've still got to do that video, ladies and gentlemen. I've got so much on my plate. where he's showing off some of his pieces, but he forgot to add the insert forum code. So he's just showing off that he adds the sand, all of that sort of thing before basing, and that's an important step to remember, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of people might do the bases separately, but it's important to remember that building your model, doing your model up, there is a whole process to it. All right, next up we've got Waxer, and he's been painting some Dead Zone minis for the game he plays with his son, and he's been trying out a Tron theme. Now, I think that these little blue blades, as he was mentioning, the Tron theme, come together really well. I think as far as the color scheme of these guys, the blue contrasts with it absolutely beautifully. I think that the shield could be worked on a bit, because I think, like, when you've got a large flat surface, I think that there's a lot that you can do with that. I think that some of the guns are looking a lot better than the others. So this sort of energy weapon, maybe flamer thing, is looking really nice, but this gun over here looks like it could use a bit of work. I think that the bases have come together nicely. So this is what I would call just simple basing, ladies and gentlemen. So you've got some different sizes of gravel and just a tiny bit of fluff right there. And that is all that is necessary. All right. So I think that these guys right here, they've come together nicely. I like the engine glow. I think that that looks really good. And I think the way that you've done the airbrushing on these is just beautiful. All right. So here are the Rebels, and I think that they've got a great vibrant color scheme to them compared to that of the Enforcers, and I think that they're coming together just beautifully. I really love the vibrancy of the colors, especially when they're contrasting with that right there. You know, it's a very sort of definitive look to them. And even you'll notice that their basing is slightly different, like that there's more grass, gives sort of the indication of them being the good guys slightly. And we've got some works in progress. His son is doing up these for his Frostgrave, and it is great to have another young person on the threads. It's always good to see that people are still getting into painting, because, you know, they are the people who will be carrying on this tradition. And some watches for WWX. I'm not too sure what that is, but I do believe that they're going to need a little bit of additional colors to them, or maybe a bit of a close-up to give them some differentiation. I think the big thing for you is maybe add some base that gives a strong contrast with these guys, and they won't look as monochromatic, but at the moment they look a little more monochromatic. And then we've got some Bathurst for Warzone. So these guys are just some more works in progress. All right, and we have just a quick comment. All right. All right. He says just he just mentions that by following Gorilla with the Brushes work on the Anton, he learnt about basing and glazing. All right, so Razor has to go. He says, appreciate what you're doing here. Cheers, man. No problem, Razor. You have a good one. I know that it's very late for some people. It is very late for me here, but of course I want to get through everything. All right. But yeah, so, you know, people can learn quite a lot by just osmosis, by just seeing how other people do things. Next up, we've got Dogma 2097. And so remember how I said, ladies and gentlemen, keep that in mind. So we've got this guy right here, but I wanted to skip straight to this guy because we saw him as a work in progress, and we see how much he's grown, right? So we see this plasma guns glow. We see the way that he's done up all of the seals, you know, now that he's added the purity seal to that. I think that the way that he's added the robes having the blue color of his army really helps cement them as a part of his army rather than something completely separate. I think that that looks really good. I sort of also like the slight dust effect on his boots here. I think that that looks really good. And of course, absolutely phenomenal basing. I think the green glow with the lens of his helmets look just absolutely beautiful. I think that maybe if you're going to look to improve things, just a bit of edge work with the black. Gorilla with a Brush says a ton of great detail work on this Marine. Looks really good. But yeah, I think that it does look really good, of course. And the thing is, I always try and look for stuff to give critique. But so I think just maybe even some edging within the edging to make it a little more obvious. Doug the Fug says, beautiful work. The plasma looks great. So next up, I want to talk about this guy who I skipped over but just because we saw the work in progress earlier, and I just sort of wanted to point out things never start finished. That's sort of been the theme for this episode. Now, I really like the thematic idea of what he's doing with this guy. You know, that this guy paints on a skull face rather than having a skull face helmet. And I think it really does add a lot to this miniature. And I think that it really gives just a beautiful character to this miniature. And speaking of character, I think that you've done absolutely beautifully with the way that you've got the highlights and layering with this blue of that tabard there. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. And of course, even like the little glow on his hand flamer attachment there, I think looks just beautiful. As for critique, I think, yeah, it's pretty much the same as the guy below. Just a bit of edging with the black, I think, will really help make it pop. I know that you do have some edging there already, but it's not very obvious, and there are some other places where you can get some edging in. But yeah, so Doug's stuff is, sorry, is it Doug? Dogma. I don't know why I said that. All right, and Gorilla with the Brush adds, for edge highlighting red and black, one trick is to really push the lighting towards the white and then glaze over with a few coats of the last layer color. Highlights without changing the color too much. I can try and make a post about that later at the WAYPN thread. Yeah, you go for it, Gorilla with the Brush. You know, people will certainly listen to it. And even if you want to make your own thread about it so that it's searchable, because I know that that's a big thing with the actual Beast of War stuff. All right, so Lorne Orr showed this to us earlier, and that becomes... so he's adding the crackle paint here. That's crackle paint right there. And he had to leave that overnight to dry. And then it turns into this, and just a bit of a water effect later, and all of a sudden, bam, this is what we've got. And it is absolutely beautiful, ladies and gentlemen. Just freaking gorgeous. I absolutely love what he's done with the piece. So I think that the way that he's done these sorts of things makes a great little piece of terrain. And they're just some really teachable moments there, the way that he's really put this together. So, like, there's not really too much that I can say other than that it's got a great lot of contrast here. This is very much what I'm talking about when I'm talking about contrasts of kind. So we've got the dried up water here, right, with the odd leaf or two in there, you know, and the bit of bush desperately trying to survive in there. We've got the dried up bush in here, right? So you've got that great contrast of kind between the different types of bushes, right? The ones that are, you know, the waterlogged ones and the ones that survived on the rocks. And then you've got, of course, got the contrast of the water area, the dried area, and of course the rocks. And then of course within the rocks there are the different types of rocks. So Doug the Fug says, gorgeous piece of terrain, and I'd have to agree. And so he's done up these dropship commander guys, and so to me, like, I don't have a good eye for judging these sorts of things. I love the color contrast here with the gold, which of course, what do we say about metals, is a yellow right here. That contrast right there is absolutely beautiful, and the blue underside of them contrasting against that. I do believe, do we get to see that at any point? Not as much. I think that that looks absolutely beautiful, and this sort of purple fade along the fins I think looks just gorgeous. But yeah, I think the thing is that they're very much an alien miniature, and I think that the company's done really well putting these together, and I think that they very much do look alien, and I think that you've done a great job in giving that off. I think that this looks really good the way that you've done this up, but as for comments as to how to improve things, the only thing that I could suggest improving is just give a tiny bit of white and a gloss wash over those to give the idea of them being lenses. That is, if they are lenses. They could, of course, just be rocket bays or something, if that is the case, to give them that more sort of contrast of kind. But yeah, I think that they look absolutely freaking phenomenal. All right, next up we've got Doug the Fug, and he's got his Captain from the GW store birthday. Now, first off, I know that it's not something that people think about when they compliment something, but he has done really well with the transfers. Transfers are an absolute nightmare, ladies and gentlemen. So when you see somebody do it properly, you know, like, I don't even do transfers. I just paint things on. That's how much I hate transfers. I'd really like to know how to use them properly, but every time I just have something that ends up falling apart. So I think that he's done really well with the black here, right? I do think that it wants a little bit of layering, but I think while this trim right here is absolutely gorgeous, I just think that the cloak, even though, so painted him up on the sprue so I could get his cloak more easily. Yeah, so I do think that the cloak really wants a bit of work. Like, I understand that there's some sort of theme that's meant to be going on here with the splatters of red and such. I think if that's meant to be blood, just get yourself some blood for the blood god and just actually use the toothbrush technique or something equivalent to it and spray that on there. And I think that that red won't look as smudgy as it does at the moment, because at the moment I think that that's really working against you, because you've obviously put a lot of effort into this miniature, and we can see that with the hair, with the very sort of nice flat black, and even I think, you know, the way that you've done up the stubble, and of course these studs in there, so you put a lot of work into it. So I think you really want to put that little extra bit of work into the cloak. And of course, I think that you want to do a bit more with the base, because at the moment, it's sort of indistinguishable what this brown stuff is here, if it's meant to be a lava effect or something like that. Put in a phenomenal amount of effort. I like the blood effect with his fist, as if he's ripped something out. And other than that, oh, and of course, those little tassels there and the rope attached to it, I think looks just gorgeous. But other than that, I think that it's looking pretty damn good. All right, so Gorilla with the Brush says, what time? All right, so yep, he was just asking what time it starts up. And so if you guys have any questions as to when this starts, on the actual video, it will give you the exact time that it starts. And if you're subscribed, it will give you the time. But about 2 hours beforehand, I try and start posting stuff up on the Beast of War website, and get to telling people that the whole thing is on. But yeah, pretty much that's more or less it for that. But yeah, just if you've got any questions as to time, you of course can always give me a message if you want, and I will always try and give you guys a hand. All right, so we have Pierre's absolutely beautiful piece right here, and we saw this slowly evolving. So these tracks have come together really, really nicely. As I've mentioned before, I think these weathering looks absolutely gorgeous. All right. Gorilla with a Brush says, unless you're in Arizona, in which case YouTube doesn't calculate properly. Yeah, I did have that with my thing with YouTube as well, because when I checked with it, it said that I was starting an hour earlier than what I was, because daylight savings is applied to my state in YouTube, even though it's not applied to my state in real life. All right, so Gorilla with the Brush says, how does Pierre get so many models done so quickly at such a high level? Amazing. Yeah, the amount that he does is phenomenal. So I think, once again, of course, the weathering is absolutely gorgeous. You can't go past his weathering. I think that the canvas really does add to the piece, and of course I love that he's shot it in one of his terrain pieces, one of his boards, because it really does add to the atmosphere of the thing. Tank tracks have come up just gorgeously, and I love the little German peeking out with even the weathering on his helmet to give just a tiny bit of color contrast to the whole piece. And yeah, it's just got this whole sense of grime and just wear and tear to the machine. All right, Doug the Fug says, thanks for your comment about the clock, Gorilla with a Brush. Like I said, the weathering kind of happened after I panicked needlessly and added a wash. All right, but yeah, I think that this is just absolutely gorgeous, and I think that it's just so grand. But I feel like I'm saying the same thing sort of over and over. The weathering is great. I think the tank treads came together really well. I think that all of the internal mechanisms with that sort of dust effect comes together nicely. The way he does the exhaust is very nice and gives a needed bit of contrast to it, even though it is historically accurate. That's exactly how it is. He does not deviate. I think if you wanted to add some color, maybe adding it to the jerry cans themselves with a red or a green, because I know some of the times they did have that on them. But yeah, that's as far as I can go as for advice with that one. All right. Next up, we have Only One Pinman with some more lawmen and outlaws. Now, what I really love right here is this pinstripe on the shirt underneath. Or it might be a vest, I'm unsure, but it is just, it is a vest. Absolutely gorgeous. That pinstriping, just beautiful. That there's that white there, but it's not dominating. It's not stark. Now, absolutely beautiful work with the pants and with the jacket, giving a very different textured feel to the rest of it. And great work with the eyes right there. I think that they look so good. I think that they've come together really well. And he actually has a decent gun sculpt for once. And of course, brilliant work with the basing. I've just been loving the basing with these. As for this, I think that I feel that like that looks like a band on the hat, and that you could color that up and give some, great contrast with the rest of him, even if it's just a black band or something. I think that that might add quite a bit to him. But yeah, I think that he's come together really well. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, here is the sepia shot, and he looks just gorgeous. And take a look at the way that the pinstripes have come through with that. I think that that looks just so beautiful. All right, so poor gorilla with the brush, attempting to make sure that he can get up for this one. All right, so Sed says more craziness from Forge Prince Mimic Invasions, and so I'm not too sure what these ones are. Let's have a read. Ends in a few hours. Dogs Taverns. Blah blah blah. You get over 100. I'm not too sure what these things are exactly. They might be a shield, or they might be a door. I'm none too sure what this is exactly. I think that he's done well with this. Old paintings. Gorilla with a brush suggests. Yeah, could be that, but I feel that it's not due to the metallicness of this here. Otherwise, he might have done it with a more sort of teeth-like appearance rather than sort of a cloth. I don't know. He's done absolutely beautiful work with the wood grain there. I think that that's come together really well. But I just don't know what's going on over here. So maybe Sed will join us one of these times and explain. All right, next up, Dead Dave. Yeah, showing off that his Angrath is getting a different color scheme. So he's stripping him. And see, this is part of the painting process some of the times, guys. Some of the times you're not satisfied with what you've done before, even though I think it looks pretty damn good. And you start all over again. But yeah, so that's how it goes sometimes. And we couldn't have a week without having Sartorius Paulinius, also known as Andy. And of course, he adds some unpronounceable Russian up here to get me into trouble. So this is a Red Army Sniper. Now, I really like the color with, I do believe it's a her, based off the face and the slight pinkness in the lips. But yeah, I think that she's come together really well. I like the little red star. I do think that it could be brought up a bit more. I don't mind the base this time because, we've got a whole lot of different stuff here, and she is blending into the background. So, of course, her clothes are going to look a little plain. But yeah, I think that she's come together really well, and I think that good old Andy has put in a phenomenal amount of work into this one, and I really do like the lens here. As for improvement, maybe, I guess, it's a bit hard to tell with the current angle, but maybe a bit more work with the actual thread around the gun. All right, and we have some Soviet stormtroopers coming in, and they're looking just damn fine. Now, of course, they've got that lovely color which they had throughout the war, which this is my problem with historicals, because I just don't think, like, when you take a look at these guys compared to the Germans just look so much more stylish. So I think the tanks come up absolutely beautifully. I like what he's done with the troops here, but I tell you what, Soviet Command is definitely the highlight of all of this. And what I really love is how he's added a bit of texture to the cloak there, or jacket, yeah, jacket, and how it sort of gives the idea that he's been going on for a long time. And I tell you what, all of the stuff that they're carrying does give them a bit of character. The way this guy's got I think that this is just a water can right there, the metal water can, and just some real character in the faces and all that sort of thing. I love the way that he's highlighted them up. And this tank is just absolutely gorgeous. Of course, weathered to hell. Yeah, so Doug the Fug says the Commissar looks absolutely brilliant. And for those of you who are interested in 40K, they do have a gruesome real-life inspiration. And just like how gulags are a thing, the Commissars were also a thing, inspiring through fear. Lovely people. But of course, you know, it was not a good time for the world then. But yeah, I think that this gun looks just absolutely beautiful, the way that he's done it up. Just freaking gorgeous, ladies and gentlemen. The way that he's given it that sheen and everything. But yeah, the way that he's rusted it up, I think that he's really only second in his rusting techniques to Pierre's. Because, yeah, it just looks gorgeous the way that this has all come together. As for advice, unfortunately, that's my problem with historicals. A lot of the advice that I would give would make it so that they are not historically accurate. And we've got some WAYPN. I do believe that's the correct pronunciation, but I do know that some of their pronunciations are hard. Like what would look to be pronounced Q would be pronounced Q. So yeah, don't go to me as a pronunciation expert. But yeah, so they look really nice, and I think that once again it's the problem of the historicals. But one of the things I do love is that he's added a bit more color to these guys' faces, you know, a bit of grass, that sort of thing. I do like the differences with all of the hats. You know, we've got some rice hats among these helmets and these sort of safari helmets and all these sort of different sort of things. And I think that he's done a pretty good job in differentiating Southeast Asian skin to that of European skin, because it's got that slight touch of yellow to it, just like how our skin has a slight touch of red to it. It's not a pure cream either way, but yeah, I think that that's come together really well. But the thing that I'm more impressed by is the number of ones that he's done up. Next up, we've got Dead Dave, and there's what a stripped Angrath looks like. All right, so finally we've got Laughing Boy, and we've got the last of them that we saw at the start. So let's take a look and let's get into it. All right, so here we go. All right, Doug the Fug says, maybe have some fun with Russians without guns, because in real life, sometimes they were forced to battle even without even a rifle. See Enemy at the Gates film. Yes, they. I think Enemy at the Gates did depict a particularly horrifying way of how the Soviet government really mistreated their people. But, you know, theories like communism and Nazism were really the bane of that point in time. And I'm really horrified to see both of those ideas on the rise once again, because they were just such terrible ideas for the people who they were inflicted upon. So Laughing Boy has done some more eyes, and I think that he's done really well with these eyes. I think the teeth, when you take a look back, they look pretty damn good. But, you know, up close, we're not getting as good a look at them because they blur slightly. I think, once again, very much, I'm loving that color contrast. I think that looks really good. But I'm going to say, Laughing Boy, you know, take a look at that tutorial that I showed before, because it is just an absolutely beautiful tutorial. And, you know, I think that hopefully you'll get something out of that, because I think that you're up to the stage where you can do eyes like that, because you're doing absolutely beautiful work here. So I really love the edging with this tie, which really helps it come to life and give it that feeling of animation. Same with this tie here. It's got that slight feeling of a breeze with it, because of the way that it's positioned and the way that it is colored, far more with the color. So Doug the Fug says, nice work, Laughing Boy. The color choices are great. And I would 100% have to agree with him on that one, because I think that the color choices are phenomenal also. But yeah, so this sort of purplish blue, I think it's closer to a purple than it is to a blue. I think that looks absolutely phenomenal, contrasting against the red and the blue there. And I think that the coffin looking thing that he's carrying looks so much better now that he's done it up. I think that this guy is one of the few guys which I wouldn't actually touch the eyes of, because I think that it kind of works for him because of his snarling expression. I think that that really suits him. Speaking of which, things looking just so good. I really like the way that you've done the pants here. That layering is just absolutely beautiful, man. And the goggles, of course, look phenomenal as well. I think that the guns are looking all right, but I think that basically it's just the edging that is making them go that extra mile. I think the mustache, sorry, not the mustache, but the mutton chops into the mustache looks really good on this guy. So as for critique with these two, I'm none too sure really what I can add. Taking a look at it, I would just say mainly the eyes with this guy. All right, next up, we've got this little fella over here, and I think that he's done really well the way that he's done up the creams of this, I guess, what would you call that, scarf? I think that that's come together fairly damn nicely, and I think the way that he's done up the beard, I think that that's come together really nicely. And he's done really well with one of the eyes, but he's had a bit of a tragedy with the other. But yeah, very much I think that the color choices and the way that you've got the contrast with the brickwork, I think that that looks absolutely phenomenal, man. All right, so we have Doug the Fug with his progress on his Storm of Sigmar box. So we're seeing a lot more done up on them. So they've gone through the wash stage. I really like that he's trying out some different skin colors here. I think that that's looking great. I think that you're doing well with the browner colors. I think this guy on the end here, you're having a bit of trouble with when it comes to skin. I think this guy is looking a bit red on the back, but on the front, he looks a lot better. Maybe lighten up his back a bit, but other than that, I think that they're looking really good and getting pretty darn close to finish. So I will enjoy seeing them all done up. But yeah, I think just this guy over here and this guy over here, I think just a bit of work on the back would really help those guys. All right, so next up, we've got Spam-A-Lot. And I'm just going to quickly go over to the thread itself, see if anybody else has been putting stuff up. So we've got Doug the Fug has put something up in the final moments. I'll see if anyone else has put something up. We could get that loading, taking a look at this piece. But we've just got, just a piece from Doug the Fug, and we see them all done up there. All right. So I will have that loading while I look at this. So Spamalot's given us a lot of miniatures to look at, and I tell you what, a lot of them are looking damn fine. So I'm going to hopefully get just that one where it's just the image. Nope. Nope. Okay. Okay, don't do that. All right, copy image location. Try again. All right, cool. So I think that this dragon's come up really, really nicely. And I think that with the way that these horns are done up and the underside of it, I think that that's come up beautifully. And yeah, the way that he's used yellow in with the greens on the wings, I think is really brought the whole thing together. I think that it's looking just gorgeous, and that sort of bruised purple look in with the green of the wings, I think that that just looks absolutely gorgeous. I think this guy over here, the sort of shambling ghoul vampire, I think that the purples come up very, very nicely, and I very much like the base. And I think that this guy here, the psychic-looking mofo, that the blues have come up really nicely, and there's a tremendous amount of work put into that face right there, and the way that he's tabard and cloaks all fluttering about looks absolutely astonishing. I think the purple of this guy has come up really nicely with that beautiful fade, and it's really great the way that he's done the white edging around these sort of alien tendril hooks. And I tell you what, that basing just looks absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, that purple fade around there looks just great. The highlighting that he's done and everything. This guy is looking really nice. Obviously, the base is not finished, but I really love the horns and the sort of technological feel of this, the way that the edging's done, the way that that blue comes up, and the way that this whole thing is brought together. I think that that looks just absolutely freaking beautiful. And of course, this big boy right here is looking just absolutely gorgeous. But one thing that I will say, Spam, a lot is, you know, honestly, I think that with these guys, I've done an individual photo for each of them, because especially this guy right here, because when I zoomed into him, there's a lot of detail on that guy, but I feel that I couldn't give you a full proper report on him just because of how much I had to zoom into him. So feel free to give some zoomed in shots of these guys, and I'll happily give, you know, a more detailed commentary on them, because like this guy I feel is really done an injustice by the shadows and such. I think I gave a decent commentary on the dragon and all that, and on this bad mamma jamma right here. But yeah, like especially this guy right here and this one over here, I think that I couldn't really say all that I could on these guys just because of the way that the camera is. But yeah, been a lot of solid work. So I'm just going to click this one again because I think oh, dead while my brain is not working. Sorry, guys. I think Gorilla with the Brush just added something. All right, so so it is your time to hassle me, guys. So this is something that I've been working on. I will copy the image location and I'll call that one up here because I'm going to go over to the other one to be able to look at it. But yeah, very much the opposite of what I have been doing. No, it's not up there yet. Very much the opposite of what I've been doing more recently. I hope that, can I just look at the picture? No, not the ad, thank you, just the picture. Just the picture. Okay, that was certainly weird. Photo bucket, no. Photo bucket bad. Okay, I'm just being spammed at the moment with a whole lot of ads. But yeah, I wanted to zoom in. All right, never mind, ladies and gentlemen. Never mind. But yeah, if you guys want to give any comments on this one up here, feel free, and I will reply. All right, so we're finishing off with Doug the Thug, and he's done up a whole lot of these guys for the Storm Surge box set. Now, I think that the skin on this guy's come up great. Yeah, so Gorilla with a Brush says, are you doing a water feature for that? So one thing that I will do is I'll actually call up the picture from my computer rather than from that website. And what I will do is I'll just come over here for the moment so you guys can enjoy that humorous little tidbit. Yeah, I am doing a water feature, and of course, this is just a work in progress stage. I'm going to be adding more to it. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, all right. So yeah, like I dug out a bit of a trench in there when I was doing the thing, and basically, yeah, dug out the whole bit, put some really fine sand in there, and painted that up. And I just glued the rocks and this little twig in there to give a log in the middle of it. So yes, I am doing up a water feature with that one. All right, so back to Doug the Thug. But of course, if anybody wants to comment on that, I will comment away. So I think the way that he's done up the banding / cloth with all of this, I think that looks really good. I think the heads here need a bit of work. I think that they don't quite look right, especially when you compare it to the guy himself, who looks really, really nice. I like the way that you've done the gold here. How it's still got that sort of very shiny theme to it. I think if you're going for a sort of Native American skin, you know, over here, or like a sort of sunburnt skin, I think you might want to try again with this skin one. Skin is always difficult, so don't give yourself too much of a hard time. But I think it's mainly because they're against these guys, and I think the skin you did with this guy just looks so good. This guy's skin looks fine, but I think that the way that you've done that guy's skin looks really, really good. How it's, yeah, just got just a little bit of darkness to it. It just looks really nice the way that it's all done up together. So I think that the gold's like super vibrant, but I don't mind that because, you know, that sort of gaudiness is inherent in the Warhammer / 40K universes. Like they very much seem like they're like that. But yeah, I think that that looks really good, man. I really like the way that you've done up the pants and done a slightly different color with each of them to sort of give them just that little extra bit of character to make it so that they're actually different models, that they're not just a whole bunch of, you know, identical models, that they weren't just sort of factory painted out. But yeah, man, I think these guys have come together really well. I think that you've done well with the darker skin on this guy here. Hopefully we'll have a back shot of that guy. Yeah, so I think that's the one which I said to do a bit of work on, which I think you did. But I do think that this guy over here with this more sort of reddish skin, I think needs a bit of work. I think that the reddish skin looks very off, especially once you've got it against the European and pale skin over here. I think that doesn't quite nearly look as good as the other ones there. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So 12 midnight marks me turning into a pumpkin. But of course, I will give you guys a chance to comment on any of this stuff that I'm working on or anything in general. But after that, I'm pretty much going to be signing out. So do you guys have anything to add? All right, so yeah, the theme of this week was just pretty much nothing starts finished. I did a whole thing on it from what Gorilla with a Brush said, who just says, thanks, Calidors. And yeah, it's really important to remember, guys, nothing does start finished. Every project, you're going to have to put work into it. No matter whether you're just trying to machine gun out a few models or if you're trying to make something absolutely phenomenal, you're always going to have to put work in. So nothing starts finished, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, I think that that will be the end of this little adventure for us. I'm just going to double check if we've got any comments. So Doug the Pug says, thanks, Calidors. I'll keep my brush wet. All right. So sounds like you guys know how it goes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, keep those brushes wet, and I'll see you later. See ya!